Live from the Talking Joe Studios. It's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, it's me, Mark, and welcome to Talking Joe. We are broadcasting to you live as a live stream, ready to talk about After Action Reports, Command Files, Volume 2, and talk to Greg Agustin and Roger Taft all about it. You might notice I've got a different microphone. I don't know if I sound that different. Maybe all of that money wasted on an expensive microphone was entirely a fruitless endeavor. And I've got slightly blurry background, which is disguising my true location of having just a curtain behind me. So that's how the engine, that's how everything is made behind the scenes. So I think without much further ado, let's add in Greg and Roger here.
Hi guys.
Welcome, Greg.
Hey.
Welcome, Roger. Oh,
Thanks for having us.
Oh, it looks like Mark froze a little bit.
I am.
Oh, there.
I was frozen for a second there. I don't know
Yeah.
if you saw
were
that, but that's what's
We
happening.
did.
And yeah, we are live. So this is definitely warts and all, but it does mean that if you are watching live, you are free to interact. And if you send us a message, I can share it on the screen, like a nice little message popping up there, like that. So I am in Europe, in España. Today, so it is 10 p.m. My time, local time. Roger, are you on the east coast of the good old USA?
I am. I'm in Florida, so it's a little after 4 for me.
And Greg, are you west side?
Yes,
Or-
west side. Yeah, I'm on the opposite side of the country in California. Yes.
We just need somebody in Japan, and we'd be pretty much global.
We'll cover all areas.
It's
Yes.
about time.
Yeah.
About time I had a co-host who was based that way. So today we are talking about Command Files Volume 2. I have actually brought with me as my holiday reading
Excellent.
Command Files
Excellent.
Volume 1, which is, if you can't make out what I'm holding on the screen, it is a smaller version of the image on the big one in color on the right. So this is the second go around at Command Files, new expanded continuation of the first. So let's where should we start?
Yeah.
I guess Command Files as a concept, as an ethos. What is this book trying to cover? And
Sure.
achieve?
First of all, I want to thank you for having us on again. Have me on again. This is like first time in 2 years. I was on with you when we launched the first Kickstarter for Command Files. And when you approached me and Roger a couple weeks ago to join you, I really thought it was going to be talking about Energon Universe G.I. Joe number 7. But I guess that didn't work out, so I guess we have to talk about this. Anyway, yeah, so the Command Files, for all intents and purposes, is, as you see on the screen, is a character guide. It's really kind of its origins are springboarded against the old order of battle back in the Marvel days, when you basically had the file cards from the toy packaging kind of reprinted in a Marvel Universe style book, but it was for Joe's, and then brand new artwork that drove that from her Shrimpy. And basically from there, when I was a kid and I got this cool volume, I thought, this is great. We're going to have all the Joes and the Cobras. And my expectation was like the official Marvel handbook of the Marvel Universe, that we'd have it'd be a recurring thing, an annual thing. So I was fully excited about that. But as all comic book G.I. Joe comic book collectors know that we really didn't get that, but we did get a collected edition, a trade paperback, which actually included extra new characters like Falcon and Jinx and Fast Draw. So that actually got me really excited that maybe they'll probably do collected trades, big volumes with all the new characters that are coming out. But sadly, that never did happen. Back then, go ahead.
They did run, didn't they, in some of the later issues, the odd kind of additional profile here and there of some of those later characters. So was it, as a reader back then, was your first instinct to go to the back of the comic, see if there was a new file cut, a new profile, and like, okay, there's a comic in there, but actually this
actually
this
there was a
character
little
profile is
bit
probably the
about
most interesting bit.
Yeah, there was a little bit about that, trying to get the history part of that. As you all know, that for Order of Battle, it was just pretty much the replay of the printed file cards, and wanted a little bit of the history, like what Marvel did with Marvel Universe. And in the the mid hundreds, I guess, of Joe, they started printing those with new art and so forth, and gave me entire history in more detail. And yeah, you're right, Mark. I jumped on. I ate that all up. In terms of just being kind of collector and being on top of the Marvel universes and the DC who's who. I really was kind of eating that all up just to understand the universe of characters. And so the entire time that was tracking all the way up to issue 155 of Aura, I actually, and I found this note recently in the back of that trade paperback, Order of Battle paper, I had handwritten all the characters that I wanted in that book. So I started with Battle Force 2000 and, all the 88 and 90 characters, Gridiron, everything. And they're basically saying, okay, I'm going to expect these in the next volume of Order of Battle, which we never got. But anyway, I kind of just member shoes, as you know, we in mid 90s, A Real American Hero shut down. But then when Blaylock took over the G.I. Joe license in early 2000s, actually I was really jazzed to see that, because they actually published with Image that Battle Files book. And there we go. We got actually more than just the reprint of the file cards, but we actually have real good content to go with those characters. Downside of it is we didn't get the full-fledged of characters. So my backstops and Gridirons were in that, because but we did get our favorites in there. And then there was the Data Desk files with that too, a little bit more in depth as well, and that kind of expanded the universe and addressed a lot of the new. Hey, there's a cat. It addressed a lot of the new additions to the lore that Josh Blaylock and crew provided, the Kamakuras, the idea of the green shirts and so forth. So you got this expanding universe, and it is captured right there, but again, it still wasn't enough for me. So fast forward to the early 2010s, started to get antsy about wanting to have file pages or, a comprehensive guidebook. I just went to Instagram and started designing my own pages, and tried to imagine what would Order of Battle be on steroids. And along the lines, I got the appreciation of not following the continuity of individual characters as much as appreciating the different lore or different places these characters come up. Because since the comic book times, we've had different flavors of G.I. Joe out there in the media. We've had everything from Sigma 6 to Valor versus Venom, direct videos, to Resolute, and into the movie. So as I was constructing these files, I was like, we should give a nod to all the other variations or renditions of these characters. So as I was building out these files back in 2013, I started to add to these profiles, maintaining the core file card essence of the character, and then applying. There you go. You jumped straight to my CoverGirl double spread or two page spread.
Yeah, because I was thinking, you're just
Yeah,
touching on the fact that GI Joe has been running such a long time now, and it's been GI Joe is no single thing, and for everyone else, it's a slightly different thing. So
yeah,
you've kind of got your ARA, which is quite the classic flavor, but then you've potentially got file cards and file card art the dossier on the back of the toy kind of being your go-to, or it might be that all you know is the cartoon, or you've encountered one of the many other kind of continuities as you've gone along. So it's how do you juggle all of those different things which have got their own sort of designs and aesthetics, and you've on a page like this with CoverGirl where she's looked visually quite different in these various medium and appearances, kind of given that nod to all of the different ways that she's appeared, and I see here that you're now in volume 2 sort of also giving a nod to the Energon universe, which is
yeah.
wonderful to see.
Yeah, that actually that's a last minute drop. Those of you who have got volume 1 of command files, I did drop an image of Duke Energon universe, but
Oh, right.
by the time we published that, it was just starting out in terms of like when we went pencils down and published it. And ever since then, now it was like 2 years pretty much since we closed the book, if you will, on printing volume 1. We're in the middle of putting together this volume, and I will have an Energon separate kind of character page to give a nod to like who's shown up in the new universe that Skybound has.
Cool.
But I'm glad you brought up the Energon cover girl here. But the other reason why I wanted to do this 2-page, right? Not only that she's a participant in all the different media pieces, but I really wanted to see the different color hair changes she's had over the years. It was always confused ever since for the toy and the Sunbow cartoon. Everything was kind of incongruous. But this is just a way to, again, over the 40-year span plus years of the character property, a way to acknowledge each beat that they've represented. Now, Mark, you pulled this kind of 2-page spread. I don't want to set the expectation that every character had this treatment. I don't want to. I want to make sure that somebody like I'm going to pick somebody like Wildcard doesn't have a 2-page because obviously he hasn't shown up in like a movie or something. But we do give this treatment of 2 pages of a profile to those characters that have a kind of a lasting effect to the franchise, that do resonate with people in the long run when they reflect on the joke. So in this particular volume, we will have, I'm working on a Jinx 2 spread. Heavy Duty will get that. Wild Bill will get that treatment as well. And I'm not quite sure Josh had me teased, but I will have a Storm Shadow piece in here too. Yeah. So for those of you that have volume 1 and saw that we overloaded with fan favorites with Snake Eye, Stalker, Scarlet, and Duke, there are more fan favorites appearing being spotlighted in this one. It's not just the boring drivers and pilots in this one. There are lasting characters.
Yeah, and for a guide like this as well, for a big G.I. Joe fan, the fun is almost in the more obscure characters, because
sure.
You know less about them, and it's like there's a bit more to discover oftentimes. That it's like, who's that guy? I can't even remember him. Where does he come from? And even the most hardcore fans, there'll be blind spots like that where there's just a character that's been completely off your radar. And sometimes let's flick through. Let's say Bulletproof. That's a character that kind of sort of came quite late in the run. So if you stopped collecting sort of before he actually came with that drop, then you'd have missed the figure release. You'd have missed the comic appearance, and I guess I can see an animation image in the top left-hand corner, so I'm assuming that he also must have appeared in the Deke animation.
Great. Yeah, you'll notice too in the little small box that's titled Service Area. The area that says Service Record. I do tabulate when that figure was released. So there is a date there, a year. So you get an idea when that figure was released. So if you collected Joe figures up until 89, and then you went off to do your own thing, you'll note from here that Bulletproof came after. And ahoy to Shipwreck 85. Cool stuff, man, on your Instagram.
Good stuff. So so we've got a lot of characters here, and volume 1 and 2 are Joe character specific, as in the good guys.
Yeah.
To be very clear. So what was the kind of the approach as to which characters you would show in volume 1 versus volume 2, and how it kind of, because it's not completely alphabetical, you're kind of doing a grouping as well. So kind of how are you grouping those guys together?
Yeah, I think the other kind of pursuit I had in terms of the Joe lore was kind of understanding what would G.I. Joe look like in the real world, is an organized, like a chain of command, and how would it actually lay out. So what I did to approach command files was I really didn't want to go through boring alphabetical piece, because if I had done that too, the favorites like Scarlet, Stalker, and Snake Eyes would be in the second volume. And that'd be no fun. You want to see your favorites up front. So I grouped these in terms of looking at how special operations community is structured, and I kind of rallied around, or spun the tale or the lore around, what if G.I. Joe was a special forces company, basically. And within that context, I decided to create special forces A teams, and then just started grouping, just like a lot of us do with our own figures. Say, hey, I'm going to create a Arctic team. I'm going to throw Snow Job and Iceberg, Frostbite on this team, and then for my dive team, of course, I'm going to put Torpedo and Wetsuit, and started grouping them. And I discovered that in doing so, created like a solid 8 alpha detachment teams that were really had that commonality in terms of their military specialty and so forth. So I built this core piece, and then around there, that became the basis of volume 1. And then around there, I understood that these teams are going to need support in terms of intelligence, in terms of getting there via plane or helicopter, in terms of those, a force to come to bail out the team if they're in trouble, in the infantry aspect. And then also to a tip of the hat to ninjas that might be employed to help them out too. So that's kind of the basis of volume 2, which is subtitled support element. So basically the groupings of characters that would help the A teams out. And speaking of ninjas here, so I wanted to approach the organization that way, because in a sense too, it helps people dive in there and explore, discover the dojos, discover the nunchucks, and like Ninja Force or not, there's a little bit of a nostalgia about them too, that you remember that they were in the Deke cartoon, and then they were in the late issues of Larry Hama run.
Yeah, and the ninjas, they don't get their I don't know, is a SIM card?
Oh, the common access card. Yeah, thanks for pointing it out. So graphically, if you noticed in the actual Joe team files, I did put all their personal information and mimic a common access card that military and government employees would use, and I would sneak in their file name, their birthplace, and their rank. And if you look really, really closely, I even snuck in their serial number that you'd find on the file card, down to that detail. And then, as you were pointing out, Mark, for the ninjas, they don't necessarily are government employees or military. So I took in my world that they're at least some type of contract, or there's at least some file in there in the Pentagon of these guys. As you can see there, the little kind of torn sheet there. They're signified as aligned with their ninja clan, and their names are noted. And those are straight from the file card.
Yeah, I'm just looking, noticing now some of that detail sort of hidden away on each page, that you've created a sort of a graphical code at the top there next to the little cards. So we've got, not too sure exactly what it is that we're seeing on the screen right now. There's a graphical kind of squiggle, and it looks like on Nunchuck it looks a bit like a bomb. But,
the
the
iconography there.
iconography,
Yeah. So a lot of those iconographies, a lot of them come from the Hasbro classified packaging.
I see.
Some of them I had to kind of create myself, but those actually derive straight into the military specialties you'd find on a file card. So with Nunchuck, I think he had an ordnance secondary military specialty, which is kind of weird to explain for a ninja, but I wonder what his backstory would be there. Also, too, I'm glad you pointed that out too, Mark. There's also the issue that we've had the classified line come out in the past, since 2020, and there's no file cards there. There was a website for G.I. Joe that people could go to find the backgrounds and so forth, but that kind of went away like past couple of years. So people are buying Joes. Granted, they're fans from decades ago, but still there's a little bit of people just learning about like Shooter or Big Ben or something like that, and they're like, where do I find out about them? So I'm hoping books like Command Files, this character guide, would be that resource, so they can help discover who those
absolutely.
are. Yeah.
It's
and
a bit
there's
of
fans getting into it, and Classified's definitely going to bring in more fans. So,
and yeah, so I think it seems like there's a demand for it. This is volume 2 in the second go round with the Kickstarter, and you're sort of off to a running start this time round. Funding quite very quickly. You're staying at 21K over 12K goal. I think you've unlocked 3 of your unlocks so far. So going great guns. So what's the end date for this particular Kickstarter?
I think we have 36 days left. Roger.
36 sounds right. I forget what the end date is. Let me get.
Let's see, end of June sometime, right?
Yeah, I think it's late June, early August, right there somewhere.
Yeah, Josh kind of planned it that way. He wanted to have an extended window because he wanted to have some fanfare generated and meet folks at Joe Fest and the G.I. Joe show in Dallas Fort Worth. So it was a little kind of signpost in the whole campaign.
Yeah, it makes sense if people are discovering about it at Joe Fest or the DFW show, that it's left a little bit open for them to jump on board as well for that. And I guess you've learned some lessons about logistics of printing from last time and that kind of thing. So I don't think people will need to wait quite as long for this one. So what you're aiming for a relatively quick turnaround on people getting it into their hands.
Oh yeah, we have total in terms of initiating the Kickstarter. We planned for ourselves in terms of what we can control to make sure that the project was at least 80% done. And it is. Again, going back to my Instagram days, I had all these projects that I worked on these for 10 years. They just needed to be, put the after action report polish on these and a little bit more extra content around it. Things like Josh is writing up like the history of the pit. There'll be additional articles in here to support this project. There's a little bit of write up there'll be an article like on the green shirts, the history about those and what they mean for the franchise. That'll be in there. So little things like that. And in terms of the stuff we can't control, I think we've kind of ironed those out already with after action reports, release of the history of G.I. Joe
Mhm.
21, and then the checklist for G.I. Joe and the Transformers.
That's my
Those were
second
quick
piece
to
of
run. There you
holiday
go.
reading.
Yeah, there you go. Good reading on that. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think
And
we really nailed it down with the checklist because that came out very fast after we got the
Mhm.
Kickstarter done. I think it was under 3 months. So,
yeah, so you're sort of not including reprints. You're a good number now in
yeah,
terms of the after action report library, right, Roger?
yeah,
How
this
many
will
how
be
many are you standing at? You've got
this is
two
yeah,
ARA focused and a
this is the 8th Kickstarter, and not counting reprints, it's the 7th book. So,
mm,
It's a big
yeah,
library now.
yeah,
and
the
particularly
Marvel,
that.
yeah, Marvel era, which was reprinted, Devil's Due era, Larry Hama's IDW, the checklist book, the 21 book, and now 2 command files.
Mm. And lots more in the pipeline as well. It's probably
Yeah,
more of a case of what what can you do first rather
yeah,
than running out of ideas of what to do.
yeah, yeah. Like if we did Skybound right now, it wouldn't be a very long book.
Well,
We can
I
fill
don't
those
know.
pages
I
up
don't
with
know.
just the
They've done
variant covers.
a lot
Not
of
a variant.
variants. Yeah. Speaking of which, Greg, that's another. I always am delighted to see your social media posts, sort of keeping track of some of the variant covers for Skybound and stuff like that. So
Oh, I kind of,
you sort of doing on the fly design.
Yeah,
I do just to keep track visually, just for the fans, because a lot of fans complain because of those retailer exclusive variants. They just don't see it
yeah.
anytime. So it's a way to keep track. But I gotta admit though, with number 21 and other variants, that broke me. I couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
It was quite a lot.
Yeah, you would you were the man who was closest to being on the top of it, but it was sort of capping out at about 50
Yeah.
for issue 1, wasn't it?
Yeah. And
So
it broke me because it was overwhelming, but it also broke my template, Mark. I had to reconstruct everything.
You can only fit in so much. Right?
yeah, there was it was for both of those, for issue 1 and issue 21. I was like, hey Greg, you'll never guess what, there's another one.
I've trained the community so much that I've had people side message me, said, "When are you going to update it?" I'm like, "Sorry, dude."
And is there a home for these sort of let's call them ad hoc bits of kind of graphics that you're designing?
Yes, I do make it a point to publish whatever infographic or meme I provide to Facebook forums, to the archive section of afteractionreport.net. Have little kind of tidbits of a lot of it actually underpins what I put into the command files, like who are the Marine. Most recent one is, or who are the Marines on the GI Joe team, or who are actually Ranger School trained. Those I have those little kind of infographics on there, and again those feed into the backdrop of how I laid out this book.
There was one that I saw that you did the other day, which was just Hawk.
Which one? Why Hawk? Oh
no,
yeah.
why was it
Why
Hawk or why Duke?
No, it was if Hawk, why Duke? Yes. That was in response to the actual post. It was literally no context. It said why Hawk, sorry, why wait, if Hawk, why Duke? And I created a meme or an infographic that pulled a quote from Larry Hama mentioning the need for the unit to have a top sergeant. There's the commanding officer of Hawk, and then there's, in the command structure, there is a higher senior non-commissioned enlisted person, right? That kind of speaks for the enlisted troops and gets stuff done.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, if only they had a different hair color, it would all be a lot simpler.
Well, version 2 of Hawk did.
Exactly. Yeah, they kind of fixed it for that.
But they didn't fix it in any other media.
Right. So with Volume 2, you mentioned that, Volume 1 sort of covered a lot of the fan favorites. Volume 2 is getting a little bit more into the slightly more esoteric Joes, let's call them. And with I think you're advertising this at 180 pages, so
Yeah.
we're covering a good few Joes. How many Joes are you clocking in at total
I want to
between the two
say
volumes?
all in it's like 130 or so.
Like
And then
that's
it's split. It's split between these full page ones, couple double page ones, but there are some that don't have that many appearances in media or just don't have a lot to talk about, like your Rooks and your a lot of this like Steel Brigade type troopers that they released in the toy line in the like the 2000s. They'll get a half page look, but in total we'll have those. And then
Sorry, was that 130-ish? Was that between the two volumes or just for
no,
volume
just
2?
this book,
Just this
just this
volume.
book. Yeah, there was like there's 100 or maybe less than 120 in the
for the
last
first
book.
one.
110, yeah,
Yeah, I think it was 110.
yeah.
And have you ended up with many characters across these two books that exist that haven't been covered by this point?
Oh, that's good. That's a good segue into how I was going to tee this up. So the scope of the characters covered initially was the 3 3/4 inch releases that had file cards,
Uh-huh.
and I said those are my universe that I want to work with. But between kind of initiating Command Files Volume 1 and today, we had new characters in Classified, new characters that Hama had introduced in his comics that are very kind of integral into his narrative, that I felt the need that they needed their due. People like Don Moreno and Molto and Mongoose and Caseload, those new characters that he created, and now they're part of that monthly story that he puts up. So there were file cards of those generated way back when, a couple years ago too. So
Right. Yeah,
since
yeah,
the
yeah.
story has been written out for them, I decided to provide that content. And then there are many graphical examples of them too as well. So I'll portray them in the book. So I'm sort of breaking the rule out of a figure.
Yeah.
Maybe in a way it's asking Hasbro, somebody, let's make figures.
Yeah.
Let's make it dumb right now. And then on the classified front, I managed to get enough info to at least have a half page for Wolf Spider. If those who collect the classified line, there's a new Coastie Coast Guardsman called Wolf Spider. So there's a little slot for him in there too.
Yeah.
Kind
Nice,
of
yeah.
recording the lore as we go along.
Exactly. Really up to the minute. One of the things that I liked about Volume 1 was that you'd reached out to a sort of, quite a large group of audience of artists to create brand new sort of profile art, which was really going the extra mile. Are you doing anything like that for this volume?
Yes, we've reached out to many of the artists that we used the first time. We have already gotten responses from Mark Pennington, Josh Blaylock, Robert Atkins just got back to me today.
Adam Riches. I
Yeah,
think.
Adam Riches. Well, yeah, he's
for the last book.
Yeah. I don't remember if he's doing anything new for us, but he is providing files for us.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. On that note, I was really blessed to have that opportunity where I had no idea even that when we kickstarted this, we'd have that opportunity to work with such established creators.
Yeah.
On the toy. You forgot to mention Rod Wingham too from last time. That we got to work with and get brand new pieces of art.
Yeah, and if we need to this time, we may reach out to him as well. So
yeah,
we'll just see where it is.
Then Nito Diaz did a piece too for last time, and he at least we're speaking with his wife in terms of helping color chores on some of these.
Yeah, his wife is a very good colorist, so He cannot provide new art for us because he's now exclusive to Marvel, but he did
Okay.
have a piece we were able to use, and she's coloring that now. So,
Because am I correct in remembering that she is the color artist for the cover?
the cover was done by Mark Pennington entirely. He did the color as well.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
but she did do a lot of color for us in the first
On,
on the characters.
yeah,
And
Yeah. Okay.
on the interior
Probably
art. Yeah.
mixing that up.
Yeah.
I definitely sort of remember seeing her name as in the credits. Which is a nice husband wife team
absolutely,
Yeah.
very
doing their
talented couple.
doing their own very different things in the world of G.I. Joe. That's very cool.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought
So
that up,
what
Mark, because it's just something
was
fresh
fine.
too for those Joe fans that are on top of everything, that's seen everything. At least we can provide something kind of new that they hadn't seen before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was going to say, you guys, you're going to be as a team. You're covering the two big cons in June. You'll be at Joe Fest and DFW. But Greg, are you going to just one of those?
I
Or
will be at myself. I will be at Joe Fest, my first Joe Fest too. So it's going to be an experience for me.
excellent.
No, I won't be able to make it for the following week to DFW.
Yeah, all three of us
Yeah.
will be at Joe Fest, but only Josh will be at DFW.
Okay. I think I was trying to convince you
plan.
previously, Greg, to make sure that you tried to get to Joe Fest, and you thought that it might not be possible. So,
Yeah,
I
glad
might
to
as
hear
well
that.
plug. Good.
yeah, I would love to go to both, but honestly, with my health issues in the last couple of years, I really can't do that much in 2 weeks.
Let's just do the big one together, Roger.
Yeah, exactly.
I do want to plug that since you mentioned that, Mark, that one of the rewards that we just unlocked for the Kickstarter was this giant chain of command poster, which is actually, if you look at it, it's actually the map or the table of contents, or how I put together. It's the key of how I put together the command files book. It's pretty much it's a lot bigger, significantly bigger than the regular 8.5 by 11 print. But it lists all the Joes that are present in the book and puts them in the groupings that I stated before. So that will be part of the rewards for the Kickstarter. But for the show, Josh is working out that there'll be a special Joe Fest DFW G.I. Joe show print to be handed out or to be available at the show. Let a little kind of sneak peek of what that is.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always good to see you guys in person. I say always good. I think it's been twice, but it's good to see
Both times were good, right?
But yeah, good to see you guys in person, and sort of that sort of personal experience of seeing things in the flesh and being able to have those chats. It's always great, and sort of there's always a little bit of magic that happens at Con, and at last it was at the last Joe Fest almost a year ago that I was talking to you guys at your booth, and you were saying, you never guess who's just been over to talk with us. It's the colorist from the Marvel or Real American Hero book. You should talk to him, and then sort of lo and behold, able to get some time and sort of line up an interview and sort of find out this fascinating story of his experience working on the Marvel books and sort of trying to publish. The bench press sort of G.I. Joe kind of experiment as well. So it's sort of those magic moments that just sometimes happen at cons that you just can't predict.
Yeah, those little nooks and crannies of history that might otherwise be lost. So always glad to find those bits.
Yeah. and sort of expand. It was able to have an oral history expansion of in that case part of the story that was in that Devil's Due, the volume 2 after action report that you've got, which my copy is sort of almost beginning to fall apart. I've read it so many times with the Talking Joe episodes focused on.
You can always buy another copy.
But yeah, I think for me as your target audience, that one, I can't imagine many people have read it or look back on it as quite as frequently as I
Yeah.
have. So yeah, it's sort
Yeah,
of
it's kind of surprising because the Marvel one is definitely our bestseller. I think there's better content in the Devil's Due one because there's so much that was not known about, and now we have it in that book, and it just doesn't sell as well. So a lot of people get volume 1 and volume 3, but they skip over volume 2. So I just don't understand that that idea.
Okay, Wreck Ship 85. Excited to see you there in a few weeks.
Excellent.
And we've got W. Rosado 71. I guess that must be Will Rosado, the
That
artist.
looks like might be Rosado. Yeah.
These volumes were amazing. Honoured to have work in a couple of them. That's great. And Will, we have to talk at some point because
Yes.
big fan of the work that you've done on G.I. Joe with your brief stint on Marvel before coming back during the IDW era in the IDW verse aspect of G.I. Joe.
Yeah, that's one of the little nuggets that you don't know is that most Joe fans don't know. As Will has his fingerprints on 2 different eras.
Yeah.
Comics. Yeah.
And I think we've had this conversation, myself and Tim, that Will would be one of those artists that would be very happy to have him come back and sort of play in the Skybound era of G.I. Joe as well. So
I had a question, Mark, for Joe Fest. You understand? Will you be hosting a panel?
Yeah, we will. Myself, and Tim will be talking to Larry Hama on I can't remember which day it's going to be now, but on one of for the Larry Hama panel talking about.
Give you a heads up. I'll be one that will be raising my hand, so don't skip over me. I'll have a question.
So yeah, I think we'll sort of try and have a balance of some of the greatest hits in terms of people who maybe haven't heard Larry talk before, but also delve down into some interesting and unexplored territory. But yeah, Larry's always got something interesting.
I'm gonna have some Bucky O'Hare questions too.
Good.
That's great. So what else did we? I've got written some handwritten notes there,
Sure.
and the last thing that I've got on my list is probably really super insightful and really good question, but I can't for the life of me actually make out my handwriting, so I think we'll probably never know quite what that was. But yeah, let's before I forget, let's skip ahead a few slides. So I don't know if there was anything specific about the aviators that you wanted to talk about.
This one I had put this in just to call it that. We had Adam Riches provide that artwork, and then also just a little kind of nod to the running comic book joke that since Marvel wasn't allowed, or we weren't allowed to use, G.I. Joe wasn't allowed to use the word named Ghost Rider in the book. There was always that running joke of saying, what's his name? Who was that? Who's flying the stealth fighter?
Yeah.
So I purposely graphically kind of obfuscated his name a little bit there, but yeah, that's probably the only takeaway here.
That's great.
Kind of a funny story when we were doing the countdown images to before the Kickstarter, and I used this image. I said something about the pilots in the post, and I said, "What was his name again?" Question mark. And somebody actually responded with like, "His name is Ghost Rider," and blah blah blah.
Oh,
it was like a full answer, and I was like, "Was just a joke."
That's great. It's those attention to details. Fantastic.
Yeah. Again, those are little like Easter nuggets that I have in here. There's probably a lot of things in the prose that I've written too that'll have like in jokes that come up now and again. So yeah, just overall fun. Speaking of like Easter eggs and so forth, did you want to do a little like I Spy kind of hunt on
Yeah,
the volume
let's have a
2
look. So,
Sure.
issue?
we've
I just
got
noticed looking
here's
through
the
this.
volume.
Yeah. So for this piece, Mark Pennington worked off a list that I provided Roger, and also to speaking of that, if Mark Pennington was on a local news show several weeks ago about his work on Operation Recall and his history with Hasbro. But in the B-roll video on his desk, he was actually working on this piece,
Yeah.
which was kind of cool to see.
So
Anyway,
we were in the news.
they were in the news, yeah. Anyway, Roger, in terms of the list that I was actually going back to what I had provided and kind of reconciling if he actually had done it. A couple of things call out. I think I asked for all Battle Force 2000, well, 6 of them there. I think I only make out 5.
I think there is only 5, but yeah.
Only 5. I can't figure out which one yet. I know Dodger is the one that's right behind Storm Shadow.
Well, the 6th one is up in the Tomahawk there.
Well, that's what I was
He's
gonna
one
say.
of the silhouettes.
Well, that was the other thing too. I asked for Molto, and I was trying to make him out there, and I couldn't find. Maybe Pennington didn't know who he was, perhaps, or didn't have
that might be, or maybe he just didn't have enough space. But
yeah. So my explanation for that, no price explanation, is he's either in the Tomahawk or Molto is his name. His name in Tagalog is Ghost, so he's just not there.
He's standing behind the mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the main black and white image, which will be coloured up,
it'll be
like
colored
that
up
for the printed copy, and worth calling out that
there you go.
the two covers form one gigantic image. Who's the lucky owner of the original art? Is it? Somewhat sheepishly, Roger put up his hand there.
I'm glad you're showing this image, Mark, because there was one big omission that we had in the left side, the cover art for the first volume.
Oh, right.
Which probably Diane Davis would have taken objection to. I was like, I hope she doesn't notice.
Yeah.
But we did miss, for some reason. I think it was on the list of Pennington, but for some reason the famous first sergeant isn't on the first. Cover the first. So to make up for that, Mark, I asked Pennington to include Duke in the second volume cover, but the Star Brigade version.
Right.
Because Star Brigade will be a chapter, if you will, in the second book.
Yeah.
So let's do a bit of a zoom in and do the Where's Waldo now on this. So let's navigate to the right bit of my screen and get this going. Let's see. Just bear with me.
And basically what we did with Mark is just give him a list and said, do as many of them as you're comfortable with. And he came pretty. So.
Yeah.
So I've done the zoom, and here we go. So this is Star Brigade Duke, right?
Yep,
so
that's him.
He's got this funky sort of spiked shoulder on him, and
like cybernetic.
and a minigun for an arm.
Yeah.
Yep. Relatively true to the actual figure. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have ever owned one of the Star Brigade Joes. I haven't quite brought myself to that.
They are. Yeah.
Oh, was Pennington still there when they did Star Brigade? Did he have his hands in there?
He should have been gone entirely.
Yeah.
I don't think he was even doing like freelance work at that point.
Yeah. But we did try to include characters that Pennington worked on. There's a shock move up in front.
Yeah,
which he was.
So
he mentioned he actually went to the local police SWAT department to get more visuals and more inspiration for when he designed that character.
Yeah. Voodoo was one. The second version of Storm Shadow was one.
Yeah.
And I was very pleased to see
Sure.
Sherlock, which
Yeah.
isn't a Pennington design, but is one of the new additions to G.I. Joe lore. Featured up front there alongside Dawn. So
Yes.
two of the big new characters introduced in Larry Hama's newer kind of iteration of Joe since it was relaunched. And he keeps on creating new characters, even despite we've got over 300 to work with. So who else can we see there in the top right hand corner? Is his name Blaster, the other Battle Force 2000
yeah,
guy
it's always
in the green?
yeah. I think
Again,
he's Blaster and Blockers behind him in the tower.
in the tower. I can sort of see the silhouette.
Yeah.
Maverick.
Knockdown and Maverick are in that other
Yeah.
tower. Crikey, I'm putting myself on the spot.
Yeah.
I can remember some of these.
Yeah, for some reason it's hard to remember the Battle Force 2000. I've always had trouble with that group.
Yeah.
Now you have a character guide to refer to, Roger.
What was that?
Now you have a character guide to refer to.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. I won't forget anymore.
And we've got one of the wild gliders up there in the top left-hand corner.
I want to say that's Skymate, if I
it is.
I called it out properly. Yeah, so we have an Aussie in there.
Yeah.
Right. And another of the newer Joes. Call it newer, probably 15 years old or something at this point. But Helix there, who's got an interesting sort of story around her creation. That it was the Hasbro publication kind of liaison guy, the Hasbro. I'm struggling to remember his exact job title, but the publication leader at Hasbro, Michael Kelly, who sort of had a big hand in the creation of Helix. I think she started off as basically just a sort of a skinned version of Scarlet in the game, and he decided he wanted to make her a much sort of bigger feature, so he was quite involved in trying to create her as a specific character. And then she's had legs beyond that, the video game initial toy, and then the IDW verse. She's now in the Hamaverse and also a classified character. So
that's right.
Speaking of other,
I think her name comes from the video game. The publishers or the designers of the video game, the company was called Double Helix, I believe.
That's right.
And then we got Helix.
So that implies there's
we've also got my mind is going blank. Bottom left-hand corner is Throwdown in the Hamaverse. Sean
Kamakura
Collins.
here and Throwdown.
Kamakura, thank you. So another sort of cool. I want to say new edition, but obviously it's not a new edition because at this point it's
25 years.
It's almost 25 years old.
Yeah.
So,
but a newer edition.
a lot of cool characters and detail crammed into this cover.
Yeah.
Which might be a good segue into asking, is there going to be a volume 3? What's it going to include, and what's the cover going to look like?
Well, that's a long way yet. Even though I've been working on these characters the past 10 years, I did touch upon Cobra, but not as complete as I had with Joe's. So Cobra would be the topic for volume 3. It would be a Cobra volume, of course. But I think because I'm a little bit more behind on that, we probably won't see something like that till 2027. Plus the fact that if I wanted to be at parity of what I've done with command files, I need to come up with some kind of Cobra command structure or grouping. One of the things that I've been toying with is looking at what is the career path, if you will, of a Cobra trooper. Where does he go after he joined the ranks? Does he go into the eels? Then he becomes a snow serpent, hydro viper, however, or does he? What's the path for him to get to being a crimson guardsman? If that's a different career path, if you will, quote unquote. So those things I'm kind of map out of all the dozens and legions of viper iterations, from meta vipers to cyber vipers to techno vipers. Those kind of things have to be sorted. I do have that drafted somewhere, just kind of polish it up. But that and the profiles themselves have to be.
Yeah. I think it would just be Cobra Commander at the top, Destro, Baroness, about 15 named characters, and then a pool of vipers. Yeah. That's about it.
Well, the way the comic works at the moment, it's like Cobra Commander, then Dr. Mindbender, and then just everyone else.
Everybody
sort of floating about underneath. They did this sort of in that in the ARA, the later ARA issues, they sort of talked about sort of like a lot of those Cobra specialists, like the named Cobras being almost like sort of this sort of grouping of independent contractors that kind of get brought together.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone's I think got slightly different headcanon about whether they're sort of like, you know, by virtue of being a named character, you're almost like a kind of a sort of sub-team commander or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, then there's also the debate of, is the Saw Viper just the Saw Viper, and then Wild Weasel, is Wild Weasel just the Wild Weasel? Those type of discussions take place. To answer your question though, in terms of this art, I'm told by Roger is that there is discussions for Mark to do a Cobra version of this.
Yeah, we put Storm Shadow in the corner so that we could put evil Storm Shadow back to back with him.
Nice.
And then we might have a transition at that line, so it's kind of not in the same location, but it'll be the same image. So we're not entirely, that's still in the future, but that's kind of the basic idea.
Yeah. Let me get the core book figured out first.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not out of the realm.
Great. And yeah, what else is happening in the world of After Action Report, Roger?
Not a lot we can talk about. We are planning the next Kickstarter, which hopefully will be ready before or during assembly required, and that'll be the next two. It'll probably be a pair of books rather than two separate Kickstarters, but it'll probably be the pair of international books, and that'll be the European non-English essentially, and then everything else in the 2 volumes. So that's the current goal anyway.
Yeah, my very selfish one is to get to the IDW era, the non-harmer aspect, just to get that in a book and all collected, and help people with that reading order, which is, because of all the renumbering, is absolutely horrendous for someone coming to it cold to know what order you're meant to.
Just to get it organized and printed, we'll have to spend about 8 years researching it.
But that's no joke, bro. I'm going through my comic boxes and I find my G.I. Joe Cobra is like the volume 1 and 2 mixed up, and like, where does it?
Yeah, how's everything pair up? What's the timeline? How do they interact? It's ridiculous. So, where do they reboot?
Yeah, I think it was volume 2 of Cobra started off as a 5-issue miniseries like Cobra Volume 2, and then by issue 5 they decided to make it an ongoing, so they just got rid of the 2 and called it Cobra, and might have even got rid of the Volume 2 aspect, and then they just kept on going, and then they relaunched it again a couple of years. Like a year later or something, again with another Cobra Ones issue number 1. So let's just following the numbering with that, particularly with the fact that you've got all of the variants and stuff, like making sure that you're reading even the right volume in the right order can be more complicated than really it should.
Yeah.
It sounds
we
like I
should
have to
probably
create a graphic for that. Maybe I'll just create
we should probably
for the
just get
time
more-
being. I'll just create an infographic for how to rate it.
Yeah, for volume 6, it's just going to be a list of the reading order and nothing else. That will be the entire book.
And yeah, we had Wreckship 85 saying Command Files Volume 4 will be Iron Grenadiers, right?
Well, I probably will have Iron Grenadiers rolled up into Cobra as adjacent as well. They'll probably have legitimate section though, that book with the Dreadnoks, of course. Maybe talk about Revanche. I don't know. We'll see, because that's a fairly new one. Even though it wasn't a toy, it's still a significant piece. Oh, sorry, Mark, I forgot to tell you. For Volume 2, not only am I going to have the character profiles, I'm actually reserving a space of an appendix of those characters that are significant in the lore that didn't have a toy. But so basically, an ode to the jugglers, as for instance, I talk about a mention of Z-Force characters. So I'm going to go into like the international version just as a nod. And then for the DDPers, I'll talk about, I'll have an entry for like Firewall and Damon and the hashtags. I think we'll have a little bit of acknowledgement there too, because it's a character guide. Probably have to have something to call them out.
True.
Cool. Yeah. A lot of those, because I guess those characters can be created by the writer, and they almost sort of own them wholesale, and they can do whatever they like with them because nobody they came out of their own imagination. They sometimes, I guess, have a bit more of an ownership and like to sort of just do their thing with that particular character. So like some in the Devil's Due era, you have like those sort of characters, Firewall, etc., being introduced, and being fairly significant characters, or during the IDW era, it was like Bill Docker.
Yes, Bill Docker
being introduced by Chuck Dixon. And you asked Chuck about that, and he did a great explanation on his web or YouTube just about.
I had
his
more. I got
creation.
more in that answer. Ask Chuck Dixon has a YouTube, and he takes questions from fans, and I got more of his answer about what was his story about how he came up with the character Bill Docker. I got more in that answer than I ever expected. And if you didn't catch that, I was actually doing research for this book, Mark. That was a little bit of trying to get some content for that appendix that I'm speaking of.
Little guerrilla research there.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad
now you've got enough content on Bill Docker to write a book just about him.
Actually, if War was auto stolen, I think maybe he had rendered Bill Docker, maybe, possibly.
I just lost connection. I said that you've probably got enough. You've probably got enough material to just have a book just about Bill Docker on his own now. So that'll be just volume 6 or something.
There you
go. Perfect. So I think we covered a lot of the ground about command files. So just I guess to remind everybody that head on over to all of the places that After Action Report can be found, and you'll find the links to the latest Kickstarter. So is it afteractionreport.net? Is that the place?
Correct. Yep, afteractionreport.net, and then After Action Report G.I. Joe comic, G.I. Joe guidebooks on Facebook.
Yep, so find the links from there. I'm sure if you just use good old Google to type in After Action Report, you'll find that, or After Action Report Kickstarter command files, and you'll find the latest data as well. So was there anything else you wanted to just make sure that we'd covered before we wrap up and go, Greg?
I think that's most everything. Did you have anything else, Greg?
No, just a shout out to Josh, who's probably watching us live right now.
We covered most of the bases.
Yeah, we did. And looking forward to hooking up with Mark and Tim in about a month or so at Joe Fest.
Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah. Head on over to the places to find After Action Report. Back it before it closes, and make sure you explore the history. If you are at Joe Fest or DFW, seek them out in person. Pick up one of these beautiful books. They make for good holiday reading because there's a lot of content there in a compact format. Sort of not. It's sort of let's say some dense reading material that I can read alongside. I've brought Battle Beast issue number 2 with me to read. That's the other thing. So that is it. If you're new to Talking Joe, you can find us in our normal places. The website that links to those places is talkingjoe.co.uk, and if you want to be an extra cool kid, you can even join the patreon.com/talkingjoe. So a big thanks to all of those guys: Richard, Sam, Bill, Christopher, Justin, Rob, Shane, Simon, Chris, Joe, Craig, Frank, Mike D, Shane V2, who is in urban camo, and Infinite Entertainment, and Patrick. And so I think with all of that said and done, let's just remind everybody that who's going to join in with this sing song, because Tim's not here to do it. Greg wants to do it, I'm sure. Nobody beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
An international podcast.
Laters.
Thank you.
Have a good one.